All right, so I've started a new thing I want to do. I want to tell stories. I've been in the hobby and for about 20 years, and professionally about, I don't know, 18, 17, something like that. Anyway, I think I've got a lot of stories that just never see the light of day, and I think they might be entertaining, and I think they're going to be helpful. And so what I want to do is answer questions that I see in the comments section. Now, this is a very raw format, no editing, just kind of hit the button like I was talking to you here. Yeah, obviously we're going to choose questions and things like that, but I felt what I've missed is having one-on-one conversations in the store and really getting to kind of know people. And as you get to know them and you move past their fish tanks and everything, you can really hear some of the crazy stories and stuff. And so I hope that comes out over time. Very low budget format here. So much so we're just gonna print it out, keep it old school. So this one, I grabbed this question just to get it started. I know you guys will leave lots of thoughtful stuff down in the comments. Not always so much as it, hey, how do I just help my tank? And more like, hey, what do we think about this situation? Or here's a situation I'm in. Or do you have a story about that? Or I'll try to weave it in. So Erika O writes, I just picked up 6 neon tetras at the local Petsmart. I left them in the bag for 30 minutes to acclimate, and when I went to put them in, they were all dead. The employee said that the fish would be stiff once in the bag, supposedly be stiff for a while. Well, when we put them in the 10-gallon cycled tank, we checked the chemistry. The ammonia was 0, the nitrite was 0, and the nitrates were 20. They were supposed to be tank buddies for my new betta coming soon. So this has happened to us countless times at the store. And in general, I've seen it happen a million times. Now, the comment section's filled with, that's why you don't shop at a PetSmart, shop at a local mom and pop and all that. And sometimes that's true. I don't think that's true here. And so first I want to touch on tetras, especially like rummy nose and cardinals and neon tetras. Their natural instinct when threatened is to play dead. Play possum. That's what they do in the bag. So oftentimes you will catch fish, you got 100 of them in the tank, and they will look dead in the bag, and the customer is pretty worried about it, and you reassure them. And then the ultimate nightmare kind of happens where they get home and they acclimate for 30 minutes and they literally are dead. And, so do I think it's the parameters of the tank? No, I don't. Do I think it's probably the parameters and the fault of the PetSmart? Yes, I do think it's probably their fault in a completely really hard to avoid way, and not like their water quality is terrible or anything like that. And in fact, in the comment section, they had said they'd watched these fish several times the last few weeks. They seem to be thriving and all of that. And it's really like, well, what's going on? And that's what I want to unpack here in my experience, because this happens. You can have a tank of fish that's absolutely thriving at a store or something like that, right? I've run a store for a long time. And they get home and they're dead. And yes, there's all the reasons, but in this case, here's what I actually think went on. And after like 60 comments, nobody alluded to what I thought went on. So what I think went on is you have employees at a store and we're all trying our hardest, right? What happens more often than we'd ever like it to happen is someone's using soap or lotion or cologne or worked on their car yesterday or painted their house the day before, and there's contaminants on their hands. And so much in my store, soap is only in selected places and there's certain sinks you can use and things like that, right? But what happens fairly often, your hands are in and out of water all day long. They get really dry. They can, right? Mine are really dry right now, in fact. And so a natural thing is like, well, I gotta moisturize, right? And maybe you're on your lunch break, maybe you're on your break, maybe your hands are hurting. Sometimes they start cracking and bleeding and stuff like that. And so you do stuff to prevent that. Well, if you don't wash all of that off after a little while, or there's a contaminant, when you go to catch the fish, and if your hand goes and touches the inside of the bag, or actually in the water, you're gonna release some of those chemicals, right? And in general, we don't see this happen in aquariums. It does happen, but not very often, because one hand in an aquarium with some lotion on it gets dispersed over many gallons of water. Now, in a small take-home bag, not very much water, maybe quarter of a gallon, half a gallon. In some future video, we'll talk about really what should be happening, how much water, how much air ratios in bags and stuff like that. But for the most part, there's a big room for error. Add some air, some water, send them home. And we're all kind of led by fear of, oh yeah, well, we don't want to run out of oxygen, we don't want ammonia to build up, we have all these things. In this fish room, we're going through a big remodel right now, which I hear you, oh, of course you are. Not even really filming any of it, so don't worry, you won't have to watch it. But we had lots of fish in small bags, and it works fine as long as you're really managing them quite well. So the risk there of them actually dying just from like natural causes in a bag, most times, very slim for neon tetras and what we're talking about today. And so you bring these fish home, and yeah, they are dying, or they died in the bag. And now you go to release them, and they're dead. That's not good. Now, Petsmart's got a 2-week guarantee. Our store officially has no guarantee. We just kind of make it right. We really want to get to the source of like what happened. And in a case like this, that's not always, we can't. You can't know, oh, Larry or Sarah over there had something on their hand and it only happened once and it's not a repeatable thing. Usually with fish dying, if it's not a repeating thing, you're never going to figure it out. So short of one jumping, right? If one jumps out, you go, oh, you jumped out, right? But outside of that, you're really not going to know. And so when we look at this, we just go, okay, well, we're going to give you some more fish. We're going to send them home, and probably they do fine. And that's even almost more frustrating for a store of like, we did nothing different, except maybe the person that had stuff on their hands is now off. They wiped it on their towel or their pants, or maybe they washed their hands or rinsed them, or maybe they were just in more aquariums and it's not there anymore. So would I tell this person like, don't go shop at Petsmart? No, I wouldn't. I would say go get your refund or your extra fish, try again, and I bet you the second time it will go okay. That's just really how that probably plays out, even though we like to demonize the big chain stores. I might want to make sure when we're placing blame, we place it fairly, and that we don't run into those same problems even our own local pet stores, which we do. We know we do. We know what happens at even wholesalers, all of that. Because we're humans, we make mistakes. So I think that's, it's a bummer interaction for sure, especially if you're new to the hobby. But I think it's a learning experience, and that is what I actually think went on. Not so much water parameters, unhealthy fish. And I should explain why I think that. Usually something's environmental, and what that means is it's in the water or in the air or, in the environment they live in. When it's environmental, everything dies. When it's not environmental and it's like maybe a disease, right? If they're dying from disease, you're gonna lose one today, one tomorrow, one 4 days later, the rest a week and a half later. It's usually not 30-minute time span, everything's dead. Same for humans and dogs and every animal you've ever seen. It's there's something catastrophic when that many deaths happen all at once. And so in our aquariums, that really only happens from chemicals, like toxicity. You can unplug the air, and even still, different fish will start struggling before other fish. It won't be all at once. And it might seem that way sometimes because you just were out of town or out at a movie, you come home, everything's dead. But I promise you, there was a series of events. Oh, the tetras had problems, then it was the catfish, then it was this, then it was your puffer, then it was this. Yes, they're all dead, but there was a series of events there just in a compressed timeline. So chemically, I think that's usually what goes on when you see these mass die-offs. And yes, we have it happen in our aquariums too. You could have ammonia spike and it kills everything. Rarely though, rarely. Even then, normally you see one set of fish struggling first, maybe the ones that are a little underfed, or a little bit of the runt, maybe already a little bit sick. Maybe some are just a little more sensitive. I don't always buy into that of this fish is sensitive, that fish isn't sensitive. I think for the most part, fish are kind of on that same playing field. We just understand them, some species less. And I wanted to bring the story, we're almost 10 minutes into this video, of how I would do stupid stuff when I was young, newer to the hobby. So when I was new to the hobby, I researched and read every forum. I watched as many videos as I could, which there wasn't nearly as many videos back then, but forums were all the rage. And I was read. And we're talking 6 to 8 hours a night. I was on call a lot, so I was reading. And I was becoming an internet genius. And I was starting to have some success breeding fish and doing things. And my hobby back then was kind of going around to all the stores and collecting rare patterned clown loaches or big ones. And I remember we were out in a different town and we found some clown loaches I wanted. And I want to say it was like 6 of them or something. But we still had stuff to do. We were actually gonna go see a movie. And I thought, well, they ship fish and all of that, it'll be fine. And so these fish sit in the car while we go watch a movie, an extra couple hours. But it got colder than I was kind of expecting. The fish didn't die, right? I get back in the car and hey, show them to the wife, like they're doing fine, who was my girlfriend at the time. And yeah, they were doing fine. But when I got home, I put them in the tank, still doing fine. Next day, ick outbreak, right? And I ended up losing all of those fish. And at the time, I didn't have a quarantine tank, so I killed a bunch of clown loaches. And, in that situation, I don't blame the store. I instantly knew, oh, yeah, let them sit in the car. Like, I knew that was wrong. Like, everyone will tell you the shortest trip possible from wherever it's coming from to where it's going is always going to be best for the fish. That being said, I have transported fish before, like I think I picked up some koi and driven them and it was hours, right? But the old adage of like, keep the trip as short as possible and make them as comfortable as possible to make your job as easy as possible is still very true. And so that was an instance where I lost money and I humbled myself. And I still, to this day, now it's always, I've got fish, they need to go to the tank they need to go to. Now, we get fish from all around the world. I've shown you where I've taken fish on trips home from a convention. It took 7 days, but it's still always the fish are the priority, and do what you can to keep them happy and healthy through the transit to the tank you want them to go. Quarantine, always quarantine. I've learned that lesson too many times, unfortunately. And yeah, the reason why I get to talk to you guys is I've done a lot of these mistakes and I'm willing to share them. And I think that's what this hobby is about. Rarely do we have kind of scientists and professionals figuring this stuff out. Mostly it's someone in their aquarium at home watching what it does, learning what it does, and passing that knowledge to their friend. And their friend passes that knowledge. And a lot of times we get a lot of good from that. And a lot of times we get a lot of bad from that too, of like, you play the game of telephone, and it changes a little bit. Well, I heard you've got to wait till it's a full moon, raining, on a leap year, and a low pressure front's coming in, and your wife has made cookies, and that's when Coriodoras spawn. Now, there's some truth in there, but all of those things aren't true. And not that everything I will say, don't take everything I say as truth. This is always experience-based. And, there'll be people out there that, I could wait hours and never kill my fish, and that's amazing. I'm glad you have that skill set. I do not. We'll explore some stuff and have some fun. So leave some questions down below, or some stories, that kind of stuff. And I don't know how to articulate what I'm looking for. What I'm not looking for is how many fish can go in this 20-gallon, or my fish has ick, what should I do? Those we've covered in videos where it's like, here's how you treat ick, here's how you treat fin rot, here's the best top 10 fish for this. It is more of things that maybe you haven't seen answered before, or might take a long time to explain and is kind of really niche, and I might know about it, right? Because it also doesn't do you any good to go, hey, this fish you've never heard about, Corey, could you tell me all about it? And I go, I don't know anything about that. But, stuff related to work for me, stuff related to fish that I keep, plants, industry stuff, funny stories from the past, serious stories from the past, collecting in the wild, people I know, all of that kind of makes some sense. And not every question will be answered because there's never going to be enough time in the day. And then also I have to be passionate about it and want to do it. And so, we'll go from there. So thanks for hanging out. And we'll see how this series goes. This could be the first and last. Could be more. We'll see. I'll keep printing pieces of paper and reading your guys' questions, hopefully, and we'll get something done. So we'll see you next time.